Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. I pass those words along to you from our dear friend Bruno Groening. That's how he saw us. That's how he saw himself. That's how he knew himself. And that's what he knew we were. He didn't know it because he read a book. And he didn't know it because he got to hang out with someone as wise as Bruno Groening. That's where the idea came to me. I got to read and connect energetically and learn this from Bruno Groening. Bruno Groening himself had a direct connection to God. And he knew many things. He never read an entire book all the way through. And yet he knew more in essence than anyone I've ever heard of, with the exception of Jesus. And Bruno Groening brought Jesus back to me and to many people. He saved me from incorrect ideas about Jesus and really about Christianity. So for those who don't know, today is the anniversary of Bruno Groening leaving his body. Hey, Jason. Hey, Nicola. So I was a little sad this morning, thinking about what he went through, what Bruno Groening went through. So why did he do it? Why did he come? When he was a child, he established his connection with God when he was a child. And he once said something like, "There's so much evil here. People are so evil. Why am I here?" Exclaiming this to God. And he heard a response. And the response was, "You asked me to come here." Meaning Bruno Groening asked God to come. So Bruno Groening said that Jesus knew what was going to happen to him before he came, and I'm pretty sure that Bruno Groening knew what was going to happen to him. David wrote, Christ. David wrote, "Christ, I amity." That's rich. Thank you, David. And that's it's so perfect because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. So Bruno Groening said, "I want you all to be masters of life." It's a strong statement. And he also said, "I have come to restore balance to humanity, that they may be masters over matter." Wow. It's another strong, that it's even possible for a human being to become a master over matter. But that, according to Bruno Groening, was part of why he came. To restore that balance, that actually that's natural. For thousands of years, we human beings have lived with the material world being superior to us. And in essence, the material world is, in many ways, is in charge of us. Not completely, but just bear with me. Meaning, we're not able to control it, but it sure is able to control us. But Bruno Groening pointed out that that's not natural. In essence, he'd say spirit rules over matter. And his life demonstrates what is possible for a human being that's completely aligned with matter. Aligned with spirit, is that matter can shift. I have a friend in this work who I know well, Alse from Norway. Some of you may know her. I've told the story, but it's special to me because I know her personally, and I know her to be a woman of integrity. She was driving once, and she was in Europe. They have these big, we have some in the United States. We have these little circular, when you're driving, like there's 4 streets, and you enter this one, and if you want to go to that street, you have to circle around and then leave. Well, she was in a giant one. A really big one in Europe, and she needed to get over one lane over. I believe it was to the right lane to get her exit, and she just couldn't get over. There was the cars were really tight, and she just said, "Bruno, help!" And she says she doesn't know what happened in that instant, but in the next instant, she and her car were in the lane. She found herself somehow, she doesn't know how. Her exact words, I heard her tell this story. I don't know what happened in that moment. And then that she found herself in the next lane. So let's sit with all this very deep calling that Bruno Groening called us to. As David wrote, Christ I amity, to be more like Christ. Let's take in some divine energy and reflect on these things. One of the first spiritual things I got into a long time ago was something called the Ageless Wisdom by a woman named Alice Bailey. Very esoteric, very complex. And one of the things it talked about was the process of becoming a master. But in very you really, I don't even have words. There's 435 books and just dense, thick philosophical material and information. And her books opened my mind to this view of becoming, whether you call it a master, like Christ. I like Bruno's phrase, a master of life. But the nuts and bolts of how to do this were shown to us by Bruno Groening. Having faith, watching our thoughts, checking every thought, being connected to God, striving to be connected to God all day long. Rejecting negative thoughts, doing good, being of service, taking in divine energy, being humble. Very simple things, not easy. Easy to do in the moment. Surrendering to God, very easy to do in the moment, but to live surrendered, connecting to God, easy to do in the moment, but to do it all day long. Having faith, watching thoughts. None of these things are easy to do ongoing. Easy to do for a minute. So from my point of view, Bruno Groening came and gave us the very nuts and bolts of how to become a master of life. No fancy language, no deep learning required, no money required, but effort and humility. And there's so much help available, and yet we still need to make effort. Bruno Groening said this life is a school. Spiritually and religiously, most people go to one of two extremes. All grace, like, oh, I just rely on God and I do nothing. Or all effort. I do all this stuff to grow spiritually. Well, Bruno Groening really pointed out the necessity of both. The necessity of relying on God, the necessity of a spiritual helper or friend, such as Bruno or Jesus. Not necessarily a physical association with him. And then our own efforts to live the teachings and strive to receive the grace. I think help is maybe a better word, because grace is, you do nothing and you get something. And that happens on this path. People see a picture of Bruno Groening and experience a healing. People go to a website. People go to one meeting. Absolute grace happens, for sure. But that's maybe a very small part of the path. So let's reflect on the simplicity of Bruno Groening's teaching and our own need to strive and our own need to access the energy or power of grace. Einstein tuning in can seem like a passive procedure, but actually it isn't. Bruno Groening said you must tune precisely. Bruno would say, I send you the energy, you have to take it in. So let's really engage that will to receive. Thank you so much, Jason. Bruno said the human being is and remains divine. Now keep in mind, Bruno said this in Germany right after World War II. Can you imagine? The world hated Germany. The world thought Germans and Germany was evil. And Bruno said, no, human being is and remains divine. If someone does, I don't have his exact words, but in essence, if someone has done something evil, it's because they've literally been seized by that evil and literally forced to act. Now, it doesn't deny them responsibility. They let the evil in the first place. And so I love what Jason wrote. Life is a school for coming to the awareness of that completion, that we are complete, or in Bruno's words, that we are holy or sacred or divine. In fact, he called this the path of sanctification. And I would add, it's not just coming to the awareness of that wholeness, but it's the embodiment and living of it, being an expression of it. Being, as it's written that Christ said, the light of the world. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining in. Thank you, David, for Christ-I-amity. And thank you, Jason, for your sharing. Very, very beautiful. And so in harmony with what Jason said, I'll close the way I began by saying, hello, divine creation. Hello, divine marvels. Hello, children of God. Hello, beings in whom God lives. Bruno called it the divine spark. There's something inside each of us that is of God and in some mysterious way is God. And my understanding, thanks to Bruno Groening, is that life is all about being in contact with that and then living that. Being the light of the world. Just as Bruno Groening was. Maybe not to the same extent. Maybe not the same size. I don't know. That's a theological mystery. Meaning, how bright can each one of us shine? Is there a limit? Like, is the level of light, love, and power that Christ brought forth? Is that our destiny, or is that reserved for Christ? Same thing for Bruno. Is that, or is it our destiny to become equals with them? Interesting question. Let's find out through being connected to God. Maintaining faith, watching our thoughts, firmly rejecting evil thoughts, thinking good thoughts, doing good deeds. As they say, I don't know if they say it in other parts of the world, but here in the United States, it's where the rubber meets the road, where theory needs to become practice. Thank you so much for joining in. Take care. So much love.